And take a deep breath. Oh, that was very sudden.
That was very sudden, wasn't it? But how lovely for us to start. And we've already got like 13 people watching us. That's amazing.
It is great. Thank you, everybody. And it was terrifying because Louisa put on there, hello, everyone. Already got 8 people watching. And then suddenly it went down to 5, as though when they found out who was on, they turned off. But it's gone back up into double figures. God bless each and every one of you. Cindy B. Oh, Cindy's here. Benoit from Texas.
Yes,
and hopefully back in Portugal very soon. I don't want to rush you back, Cindy, but it'll be lovely to meet you in person here in Portugal. Welcome, everybody, to Feelgood Portugal, formerly Spiritual Portugal. How pretentious was that?
I know. I never liked it.
You didn't, did you? You were advising me against it right from the get-go. And as it turns out, should always listen to Mrs. M. But she lets me have my head, and she lets me get my own way, and then I get proved to be wrong, often in public. And here we are back with Feelgood Portugal. And we're asking tonight, yes, we are in different rooms. It's got to that, Carpe Diem. We're like Simon and Garfunkel. We perform together, but we can't bear to be in the same space. Not really.
Do you know what though? It's like foreplay actually, because we don't really ever get the chance to go out on a date, do we? Because of the children. And so this is one way that I can actually spend the whole evening looking into his eyes, you see, for 2 hours.
Same here. Great. I am looking into your eyes right now in a way that I probably ordinarily wouldn't, which is excellent. So thank you, everybody, for enabling and encouraging that. Really, really appreciate it. Benoit to you, Jeff Jackson, in the United States as well. And of course, twice. He's given us a Bonoit and a Bonnoit. We'll take both of those. Thank you very much, Jeff.
That's great. So what's the theme for tonight then, Carl?
Well, I might deftly type it into the banner. We want to know what the weirdest treatment is you've had. We've got Jennie Lowes joining us, who is...
Yeah, did you send the link to Jennie earlier?
I did. Don't worry, I'm all over it.
Good.
We're in with Dr. Bayard's. Jennie will be joining us around the half hour. You spoke to her, of course. What would you say are the highlights of Jennie to stimulate people's interest in staying tuned till 10:30 when she joins us? At least it'll be more than us. That's one thing, isn't it? So well, how did it go with Jennie the other day?
The highlights of Jennie. Well, Jennie's a wonderful, wonderful individual. So it's really amazing because, as you all know, I really like to learn about health and natural health and healing and how to stay feeling great all the time. Because obviously if you feel great in your body, then the chances are your life feels good as well. And so I'm all for that. And usually I talk to people who are very much on the holistic side, but not necessarily on the medical side. And Jennie, our guest tonight, she was a nurse for like 20 years. So or 20 plus years. So she's like fully trained as a nurse. She's done, I think, a postgrad in, I probably shouldn't say this because I might say it wrong. I'm pretty sure she's got training in emergency health, or moral, morality of the ethics. There you go. The ethics of healthcare. So, she can actually confirm it when she comes on live. But so she's really, really well trained and worked for the NHS for years, and following her own health, thinking about how she was feeling in her own body, she realized that to feel good in her own body, she actually needed to look for solutions outside of the NHS. So it's a really interesting story. And actually, when I first heard of her and listened to her for the first time, it was on the Richie Allen show. So any of you that have listened to Richie Allen before, it's a really big... I mean, we watched Richie Allen about 10 years ago when we first met, didn't we?
We did. He was the anchor man on David Icke's The People's Voice. which, as it turned out, wasn't the people's voice, and rather ill-fated. I have
It was
to
his
say.
voice.
It was mainly David Icke's voice, wasn't it? Occasionally Richie Allen's. But yeah, who
But,
remembers the people's voice?
Yeah, but
Apart
yeah,
from
so
you.
I popped her a message and we had a little chat, and when she agreed to come on my show, I was delighted. So we had her on and we were talking about how to stay healthy. And she's an expat, she lives in Portugal, and so we're talking about all sorts of different things like diet and stress levels and this, that and the other. So she actually offers integrative healthcare. So for instance, if you're feeling a little bit uneasy and you really want to get a bit of a better going over, then she's a really good person to consult, because she's able to run all the tests for you and look at it and sit down with you and say, well, I can see what's going on here. You might need a bit more of this, and it really works with you in a way that you don't necessarily get that with your GP. So she's looking at healthcare from a completely new perspective, and I like that.
Okay, and
So
before anybody gets their knickers in a twist or surgical mask in a twist or whatever, we're not saying anything is better than anything else. The whole point, actually, one of our announcements tonight is whether people might be interested, and Jennie is, because we saw her earlier today and we talked about this, and I said, how about, I mean, with all the talk we have here of what's the most sort of mind, body, spirit, holistic place in Portugal, why don't we look at starting a Holistic Portugal directory, or an online listings area. So when people, we have people tuned in from the United States tonight. When they're coming here, they might want an osteopath. They might want something slightly outside the conventional health system. So we'd certainly love to talk about making that possible if there's a need for it. Otherwise, if there's no need for it, what's the point? But if you find yourself thinking in advance and thinking, I want to do a sweat lodge, or I need colonic irrigation, as we often do, let's face it. And that's not something you would necessarily find under C or S in phone book. I mean, I don't even know if people use phone books anymore, but you know what I mean? If it's a sort of thing that might be beyond the regular listings of medical treatments, of health treatments, of well-being treatments, maybe we should start a Holistic Portugal directory and connect the people who want those treatments with the people who offer them, and give those people who offer these amazing things often a bigger audience and a wider attention among the population. So we will talk more about that as well, how that might work. We want your views on that as well. What do you think? A Holistic Portugal directory. And of course, as you can see, the ticker tape at the bottom, what's the weirdest therapy or treatment you've had and why? Well, actually, probably more importantly, what was the result? What was your motivation and what result were you looking for? And what?
Okay, I need to ask you that, Carl. What was your weirdest treatment?
Well, before I do go into that, I'm so glad you asked me that question.
You don't know. What these years do you think I know, actually?
Oh, I've got a wonderful, wonderful treatment to share with you. I've got a top 3, and I'll tell you about one of them. I think I've gone into one of them already before, the Sweat Lodge one. Yeah, where I was blessed with a feather when I was naked, and I really enjoyed that. But let's just say good evening to Lee McGrady. Good evening, people. Hello, Lee. How are you? Probably had a few beers tonight. He likes to finish the day with a cold beer, and why not? Good evening, nice peeps. We were talking about you today, Jacqueline CDM. Can you give us details of the meetup? If it's open to the public, we have a new friend in the Bay. When we've people who've been in the mind, body, spirit movement for a decade or two now will have an idea in their head that the West Coast of America is the place, the Bay Area. You can go to an evening class, you can go to a therapist of any kind in the Bay Area. Well, guess what? In Portugal, we have our own Bay Area, San Martinho de Porto Bay. And I think it's a hotbed of holistic people, or fast becoming that. And we were talking to somebody today who's newly arrived, Jacqueline CDM, and I think he'd love to join your Sunday morning meetup if it's open to the public. So if you're happy to share it in the comments, do. Otherwise, just send me a PM, and we can connect you with this lovely man we met today. Nubianette also here this evening. Hello there. Hello to you, Nubianette, and
this is really lovely. This is
lovely.
lovely.
You read this one then.
Okay. Anne P. Julian has shared, so glad you're back to doing shows during US time zones. Carl helped me through 2020 pandemic with evening shows, although I know they took a toll on him. They did actually. Yeah. I gave him a bit of
marital toll.
it actually took a bit of a family toll on us, but
Yeah.
it was really worth doing, I think. You know,
She told me off. And actually, it was like, you know, James Brown, when you see footage of James Brown at a James Brown concert, and he's been on stage for 2 hours already, and he's still like, I dance in my pants and I need to dance. And he's doing it, and he drops to the floor, and somebody has to come out onto the stage and put a cape around him and lead him off, and his valiant, quick high stepping across the floor. I was like that after every show, Anne, but I'm glad to say it was of some help to you. It was great. It was really lovely for me, I have to say as well, in 2020 to be able to reach out and feel connected around the world. So thank you for saying that. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
But we couldn't keep it up, could we? Or I couldn't keep it up. And Mrs. M told me off and said, something's got to give. And I'm afraid we went to the morning show because that was a little bit easier to do. But who knows? We might. Well, we're back, aren't we, in the evening slot on a Saturday night? This was the compromise. You can't do it, but you can if I can do it with you. And here we are. So that's
Definitely
great.
We've got our old friend Rowan Ford joining us. Right?
Rhoda. Yeah, there he is. Hello, mate. How are you? And the lovely Amy. Hope you're both well. Great to hear from you tonight. Lovely to see you there, mate. And Jacqueline Branco, who very kindly shared the link to the show tonight in Silver Coaster. And I must say, Jacqueline, you know, we are a little bit out there, aren't we, with some of the things we talk about. And I'm wondering how that will go down in the community. So we'll find out tonight, won't we, when some people click on it and go, oh, it's him. I pretended not to be myself today, just for a joke. It was really lovely. We're in San Martino de Porto, and a lovely American couple said, are you the guy who does the podcast? And I'm like, no, I don't know. And I couldn't keep it up. So I said, yeah, it was lovely. And again, I think these are people like you, Anne, who were listening back in 2020, and we exchanged a few emails, and then actually shaking hands with them in the street was absolutely lovely. And I always love it when people come up and say hello. I just sound like such a diva saying that, don't I? But I don't mean it. I just genuinely love it when people say, are you that guy who does a YouTube thing? And what are the chances? And I'm always happy to say, yes, definitely. Who are you? It's, oh, how lovely to meet you. Rugby, Colin. I haven't met Colin yet. That's a treat yet to come. I had tennis elbow. Oh, excellent. Weirdest therapies already in treatments. I had tennis elbow, and a guy put these needles in it, then gave me some to take home. And I sat there with a needle in my elbow, but I had a filter on it that was lit and smoked. Liz just laughed. Well, that paints an amazing picture at Colin's house, isn't it, of an evening? Him sat on the sofa with a smoking needle hanging out of his elbow.
Did it heal your tennis elbow?
That's the question. That's the big question, isn't it? Did it work? The smouldering needle. Fantastic. Thank you for that. Straight in there with one there, Colin. Thank you very much for that. Oh, so many comments. I'm going to have to hold on my strangest therapy, which included gemstones, a horn, like an animal horn, and lying on a massage couch in Belfast. That is the strangest one I've ever had, but I'll tell you about that a bit later on. I think a holistic directory is a great idea. Okay, great idea about the directory. I think that's probably all the encouragement we need, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. That's all we need.
I get 2 people, that's fine. A bonoid for you, but not for me. Why is Deagle being like that?
Well, it could be a bonoid to a Louise that's watching.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I noticed later down, bonoid Louisa and Carl from Wet Belfast.
Oh, okay. Wet Belfast.
You must have rain.
No, do you know?
We had a rainbow over our house this week, didn't we? Which is really beautiful.
We did. Yeah. As we looked down the street, it was like the house was at the end of the rainbow. So we just took that. We saw a power number, a power animal, and a rainbow all in the same few minutes. It was fantastic. I have to say, having mentioned Belfast, the treatment I had was nothing to do with Deagle. I don't want anyone to make that connection and think it was Deagle doing this therapy, which others may think strange when I talk about it a bit later on. So never really had any therapy, but returned to Portugal in a couple of weeks to continue tests and therapy for vertigo. The vertigo is the weirdest thing I have had. I think it's a nerve thingy. Well, that's very interesting, and that might be the moment to consider holistic therapies. I'm not telling you what you should do, obviously, with your life and your body there, Carpe Diem, but with those things like vertigo, we're often, the sort of conventional medical establishment say, well, take these pills, or we don't really know what it is. that's often when people try a holistic or lesser known therapy, and sometimes the results can be amazing, can't they? Do you know anything about vertigo? What would you hazard a guess at from your recollection of these things?
I don't know. It's my serious answer.
You're being a bit coy.
No, I've had vertigo 3 times, and it was each time it was about 2 to 3 months after I've given birth. When I think I've been absolutely sucked dry, from the baby. Yeah, so I have experienced it, and for me, like from my perspective, it coincides with feeling absolutely, completely undermined and possibly a bit like dizzy, in knowing what to do next. Around 3 months with babies, all of a sudden the sort of really quiet and easy stage seems to ease off, and they start, moving a little bit, and you have to watch where you put them. So it might coincide with, for me, at that moment where things just all of a sudden hot up, because for the first 3 months, all I've ever done is had them in a sling, change the nappies every now and again, and they've just been continuously on the boob, and that's actually quite easy to manage. So from my perspective, it's almost like this too much, and it's like an overload. But I always look at things from the perspective of what emotions are going on for me.
Yes.
But not everyone holds that theory, do they?
No, but what's it called? Are these somatics where, let's say, we talked about this with Jim, didn't we? Jim was our fantastic guest last week, Jim White, who may turn up this evening, hope he does. And he was talking about sort of the metaphorical representations of parts of the body. And you've talked about this with Jeff, haven't you, on this show, and with Robert as well. And things like, if it's your right side and that's the side you lead with, is there something about moving forward in life? If it's your knees and your ankles, and joints, is it about flexibility? And these are questions worth asking, I think.
With the sensory data, like, seeing things and hearing things, according to which side it starts on, it could be about taking in information and either feeling like you're missing out on information or not able to receive it, or maybe the information that you're trying to give out is not being heard. So it'd be worth checking that with Jeff. Not Jeff, sorry, Robert.
Jardine. And at this point, we will point out we are not doctors or epidemiologists. And in case we talk about volcanoes tonight, I'm not a volcanologist either. I'm just a kind of well-meaning people just having a chat on YouTube. Okay, let's not. And you're a grown-up and you have to take responsibility for your own decisions. I'm not talking to Louisa there, although that's also true.
I need to hear that as well.
Jean, good day. Hey, Jean, how are you? Hola, from New Jersey tonight. And look, a third yes on the directory would be most appreciated. Okay, I think we can move on and get it going, can't we?
Yeah, Mick Stevenson saying good evening.
Mick is a great bloke. Mick is a really great guy who was one of my early folks in the community who were interviewed back in 2020, I think, in the morning. And Mick has just got such a great, clear view of life and the things that are going on in the world at the moment. Appreciate you for that, Mick, and glad you're here tonight, my friend.
We've got another treatment here. Weirdest therapy. Just in the last 2 weeks, dry needling to dissolve a lump of muscle tissue.
Mushroom.
A lump of oh my goodness, I was going to say it again. A lump of muscle tissue in my trapezius shoulder neck area, working wonders. Half solved with one treatment. More this week. Well, that's amazing. Well done.
Yeah. So 2 lots of acupuncture. And needles are, if that's what you mean there with dry needling, rather than smoking needles or moxibustion and other sorts of things that acupuncturists do. I mean, it's weird to us, isn't it? Because we're not used to having. I mean, lots of people are used to having needles in them now, but not the acupuncture type. Whether they be the Chinese big ones or the Japanese slightly smaller ones, and we're just not used to it in our culture. So it does seem weird. I mean, why on earth would that work? Sticking needles in. I mean, our only other association with that possibly is seeing it in films as voodoo dolls sticking needles into little effigies and so on. But I think acupuncture is amazing, and you can see videos, can't you? Yeah, I've had it as well, and I really enjoyed it actually.
I've had a strange alternative. We've got a really great Chinese therapeutic practitioner. I can't remember what it's called. What's the word for that? People who do. Yeah, no, who do Chinese type stuff.
Oh, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine.
Thank you, TCM. And so we've got this great friend in Avairu who does TCM.
Yes.
And he worked with me with just after my third pregnancy, and he does acupuncture, but uses mustard seeds. So I had mustard seeds stuck to different parts of my ear, and then we had put pressure on them. So there was no actual invasion of my skin, but I had these mustard seeds. It was awesome, and it really worked wonders.
Yeah. And you can stimulate them yourself, can't you? Give them a little
Yes.
massage, and that's doing the same thing of actually applying a bit of pressure in the meridian. You know, if I understand this is to do with the meridians of the body, the energy lines, and you're disrupting or enhancing or whatever by putting a needle in there, or in this case, a little mustard seed, which is quite incredible.
Oh, this is great. This is a really nice warm up for when our lovely guest arrives. And we've got some other people joining us. Jim White is here. Jim is saying, hey. Oh, no, it's the wrong one. Where did he go?
We're doing it at the same time. Sorry.
Oh, that's right. What's the weirdest therapy that surprisingly worked?
Yeah, that's a great question. And often you don't know, do you? I mean, it's the same with conventional medicine as it is with alternative medicine. You know, I think a massive part of healing is intention and focus. And what was it? One of the great French philosophers said something like medicine is what the physician does to entertain the patient while nature takes its course. And I think whether it's alternative or mainstream or complementary, that's the case. And you never really know what's working, do you? I don't think. I mean, you got a good idea, but you never really know, because there are so many variables in life, which I think is fascinating. But great question, Jim, and I hope people will answer that too. I'm in the Bay Area. Yes, colonics are mainstream. Well, at school maybe, or at work during lunch hour. My goodness, Oakland. That's the epicenter, is it not, Nubianet, of the famous Bay Area? I think that's fantastic, and we hope to have a mirror image on this side with maybe some of the most zany excesses, but who knows? Deagle. Okay, so we've got the wet Belfast greeting, and a rainbow, and we've seen Jeff's weirdest therapy, brilliant. The evening shows help me too, says Chris Robinson. Now enjoying this one from Germany. Okay, Chris, fantastic. Great to have your company. So glad to hear that. Yeah.
I've got old I was going to say an old friend, but I've never actually met this person in real life, but you've known Smita for
Smita, hello to you.
For a decade. So hello, and I don't want to say old because that sounds like you're old and you're lovely. So it's really lovely.
Me age. She's seen me over the last 15 years, I think. So how's it looking, Smita? Give me your objective view.
How are you, Smita? Very nice for you to join us.
Yeah, and Smita may well come to Portugal to do workshops in Portugal. I'm sure she'd love to come and do a residential over here. So she may well be in directory.
I'm pretty sure Smita will know of quite a few weird and wonderful treatments as well.
Oh, yeah.
So let us know what your weirdest one is, Smita.
And we mean that in the nicest possible way.
Yeah.
Anne is, of course, connected with my great friend Eric J. And we hope to all meet up in person one day. So, Sunday, I'll be in your time zone full time. Looking forward to that. So that'll be amazing when that happens. Loads more comments coming in. And are you going to tell us about your weirdest therapy as well, Mrs. M?
I'm pretty open about these things. I don't really think I've had any weird ones, but nothing really weirds me out. I'm not really weirded out that easily. But one thing that I thought was really quite interesting was family constellation.
Oh, yes.
Actually, and that is a bit unusual because it just doesn't. when it works, it's always really surprising. And just to kind of, I'm sure some other people listening in know about family constellation, but when I was living in Bali, I came across an advert on a notice board saying, we're doing a family constellation session if you'd like to help somebody heal with a condition or a psychosomatic or spiritual psychological thing, then come along. And essentially what happened is there's a whole group of people who may or may not know each other, and then there's somebody who's got a question or an issue, and then there's a facilitator. Now, the person with a question is kind of put into the center, and they reveal what it is that they need to know. And then they choose people in the audience to represent key members of their family or their life. And we're all moved like chess pieces into the center. And then the person asking the question goes and sits back down. And the facilitator, I don't know how it happens, because I've been picked to represent the person asking the question. I've also been picked to represent the sister of somebody. And it's very, very strange. So you're all stood in this like kind of circle on a bit of a stage. And all of a sudden, it's really bizarre, but you feel it's like you're acting out a drama and you don't know any of the script, but all of a sudden words come out and actions. And so one time when I was playing the person asking the question, and I didn't have the full detail about what it was, but I felt like I wanted to hide, and I ran away and I hid, and certain people coming towards me, I moved away from them, and it's really bizarre. But what happens is the facilitator kind of works it all out. And so we're all asked to stand a little bit further or a bit closer, and different questions are asked. And the really weird thing is, as it kind of resolves as a drama piece, weird stuff happens. So for instance, the person who I played contacted me just like 2 or 3 days later to reveal that somebody in her life who hadn't spoken to her for like 30 years or like 13 years or something, suddenly out of the blue contacted her. And so I've seen like families come back together through family constellation. And, you know, it's just a really, really bizarre thing. And people can have like healing. It's almost like as you work on the energy of it all together, something shifts. It's really bizarre. But I recommend it.
Yeah, and I remember interviewing somebody when I did a radio show in Exeter in the UK, and it was just spine-tinglingly amazing what this woman was telling me happened during these sessions. And it's the ancestral patterns of families, isn't it? Being available as though they were a public record, and then you can have proxy people playing the parts of the family and resolving things, like you say, moving them around in a sort of real-time chessboard situation. Quite amazing, quite amazing. So we can see that Jenny's getting ready in the green room, Jenny. And we'll just say hello to a few. Well, actually, why doesn't she join us on screen anyway? And say hello with us. Hello, Jenny.
Hello, how are you?
We're very well,
thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. Is the lighting okay? Because my lighting's terrible in here. Is it okay?
You look great. You look fantastic.
Yeah, you do look great. I've been struggling with the same thing here. I mean, it's but excellent to see you. We've sung your praises already, and we're already talking about the weirdest therapy or treatment you've had. So we won't put you on the spot straight away. We'll do that in a little while, and find out I would think. I mean, having somebody who's explored and investigated a few therapies, you might have been on the odd slightly strange workshop by mainstream standards. So if no pressure. But if you don't mind telling us about some of those, that'll be fantastic. Jacqueline's here and is coming over to San Martino. So we will have a coffee. Will that be a coffee or a coffee enema? Probably a coffee. First time meeting, I think is probably, I don't know what, I'm sure Jacqueline means an actual coffee. Boa noite a todos. Jim White, of course, is here. And hi, Chris. It was the best part of my year. Oh, quite amazing. Thank you, Anne. Evening. From Rowan, and Dean is here as well. The Dean machine. I prayed to I don't remember formally acknowledging this as a therapy, but I prayed to a giant golden statue of a certain broadcaster once. Let's leave that there.
Yeah. This looks quite interesting. Hang on one second. Don Murphy is sharing, evening folks, had the mustard seed inserted in the ear for smoking. It worked for a few weeks. Unfortunately, pressed it so much, I got an infection because of the size of the ear. I was called Van Gogh.
Sorry.
So I was mentioning, I don't know if you heard it, Jenny, but I was mentioning that I had a treatment with somebody who does acupuncture. And instead of using needles, they used mustard seeds stuck to my ear. So
yeah, I heard that. I've heard it before as well, actually. It's not the first time I've heard it.
Oh, that's good.
Right.
So for smoking as well, actually.
So what is the weirdest thing you've heard of?
Oh, go on.
The weirdest thing.
treatment that you've heard of?
Well, a bit like you, I think I'm not weirded out by too much, really. But I did go to a very weird, I didn't really know what it was, but I won it in a raffle. I went to go and buy some crystals at Christmas, and I got pulled out of the drawer and I won it in a raffle, and it was called Mesa Radionica. So it's like a radionic table. Do you know, have you heard about this?
Go on.
No.
Go on.
And it's in front of, when I went in front of me, there was like a chart and a table in front of me with different crystals on and different items on. And she started talking to me, and as she was talking to me, she was spinning a crystal really fast. And she was asking me lots of questions, and the crystal was going all different directions. This was here in Portugal, actually. It was just up the road. She lives very close. And how she explained it to me was that it was a way of breaking like karmic situations, and not just in my karma, but also in like ancestral karma as well. And there was a few things that she managed to spot, like put her finger on. And one thing was about children. So she said to me, how many children do you have? And I said, I have 2 children. And she said, and have you had just 2 pregnancies? And I said, well, actually, no, before Isaac was born, I had a miscarriage. And she said, okay. And then she started talking more about different things. And I started to cry. And it was, I already thought that I dealt with that in the past. It was, 15 years ago. And it was difficult at the time. I moved through it, and I never really thought about it that much again. But it was obviously something in me that she touched that needed healing. And what she said about that, which was really interesting, is she said that you treat Isaac, like my eldest, like he's your first child, but actually he's your first physical, fully born child, but he's not your first soul child. So like you see him as the first child, but actually he's not, he's the second child. And she said something that was really interesting. She said, the first child wants to be seen, the second child wants to be heard, and the third child wants to be understood. And then she didn't go on into the further ones. And that was quite profound for me, because I'd never really thought about it like that. And then there was some things that she picked up on, like from my family line. And she said, you'll see things changing in your life that either you have an impact on directly yourself or not, but things are going to start changing. And that's exactly what happened. Like in the next 3 or 4 months, lots of things happened that was healing the past, not just in me, but in my family line as well. So it was really interesting. I must go back, because she said to me, there's more here to deal with, she said. So I must go back and see her again. But what was interesting at the end, she said to me, do you work with herbs? And I said, well, a little bit, but not much. And she said, you definitely did in the past, she said. That's what she said to me. So she obviously read something in me, but I felt very comfortable with her. But it was just really weird, like sitting down in front of this laminated sheet with different symbols and stuff on. I had no idea what she was doing, but she clearly knew what she was doing. It was cool. I enjoyed it, but I don't really know any sort of way out there ones, really, because a lot of them have a lot of historical evidence, or that they've gone way back, or now they've even got current scientific evidence to prove that they're effective. So I don't know if weird or way out is, I don't know really. I think everything
I get
is
it.
possible.
Yes, and it's all relative, isn't it? For example, Stephen's saying here, I don't consider anything I've had done weird, but that's because Stephen is a complete weirdo. So for him, it's just normal to him. So that would explain it. And what?
Bless him, he's great. I love Stephen.
Yeah, me too. And I can only say that because I love him, and he knows it. Well, I hope he knows it, or maybe he doesn't love me anymore now. But you're right. It is all relative, isn't it? It is absolutely relative, and they're cultural things. I mean, I'm fascinated with what you've just said to us. A few things in there, Jennie, particularly about first, second, and third children. I mean, that's a general point, isn't it? Rather than, I know she said it to you specifically, but that's a useful thing, and it probably connects with the family constellation idea that you were talking about before, Mrs. M. But also this idea, I was talking before you joined us about how, I can't remember which French philosopher it was, but they said medicine was the physician entertaining the patient while nature took its course. So we need something to happen in front of our eyes, don't we? All right, Stephen. Yes, that's fair. That's fair. No weirder than me. And we do, we need something. So, and often the more gifted, or I'm going to use the word psychic. I mean, I think people can be really aware of you as a person, of us as people, and want to, and are moved to say things. but just to say it is really often too difficult, isn't it? So we need a crystal to spin or some other paraphernalia in front of us to say, okay, we can, the rational mind can focus on something, but there's something very different happening on an energetic level. And I don't know, maybe, you know, we will evolve into just being able to accept that if somebody's got help for us and it makes sense, that might be enough, but we're probably not there yet.
No, I don't think we are yet. But I think one thing that's interesting about this area is, are you aware of the thermal hospital in Caldish?
Yes, go on,
It smells eggy as you drive past it.
Yeah, it does. So when I moved into my house in Caldish, it was owned by a doctor that used to be linked to the thermal hospital, and he built the house in the 1950s. And I found loads of his old diaries before when I was clearing everything out, because I renovated the house. And it's a very interesting story, actually. He was married to a Jewish refugee that came here from Luxembourg. And he used to be the doctor for the Jewish refugees in Caldish, because there was a lot of refugees here. And then they got married and they built a house. Anyway, they're really interesting to go through, because it's what he treated using the thermal baths. And he treated many things. And in his, I've got one of them here because I thought it would be quite interesting. It's here. This one's from 1957. But he used them not just for rheumatic like diseases, but he used them for antitoxic, so detoxification, calming. He used them for a lot of nervous disorders. And he used them also for heavy metal poisoning. So he used them for mercury, lead, and aluminium poisoning. And he also used them for all sorts of different things, even breaks, even fractures and things like that. And in here, it talks a lot about lots of patients that he cured, you know. And
Amazing.
none of the mention any pharma medication at all. But the thermal hospital obviously is still open here, but I don't think it's anywhere near as utilised as it should be, or that it was in the past. So I just thought it was really interesting, seeing as though the Queen, you know, she came here in the 1400s. And she saw people bathing in the waters, and they told her that they were like magic therapeutic waters. And then from there, you know, the Queen on the roundabout, that's her, that's near the park.
Yes. The Renia of the Caldish.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really interesting. But they've just recently had a renovation. But I need to go and find out how you can access treatment, because I think it's only through a prescription from a doctor, you know.
Yeah,
that used to be quite popular in Portugal, because we lived in Korea, which is also a thermal spa treatment center. And apparently, long ago in Portugal, you could get a prescription to go to be, you know, to get treatment there. And there was some sort of corruption scandal, I think, that meant that was put into a dimmer light in the society. But that obviously doesn't mean anything about, you know, how effective it is or not. And that's not the only one, is it? There's one over towards Alcobaça. Yeah, Luso as well. They're all over Portugal, so maybe there'll be a reuse.
It was really funny when we were living in Korea. A local said that there were 3 that worked together. The one in Korea, the one in Luso, and was it Basak? What was it called?
I think Basako is Luso, isn't it? But there may well be one in Basako.
Yeah, and there was another one, and each of the, because of the minerals in the water, they each worked on a different organ. So there was one that was renowned for the heart, one for the liver, and people used to do a tour of them. We had some friends come to enjoy the spa in Korea, and they weren't really switched on to letting people in. You know, you had to almost fight to have a treatment. But yeah, it's fascinating. I like the spas. It's really great.
Well, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but that's a picture of the outside. It's absolutely beautiful.
It's a beautiful building.
Yeah. And Jennie, you know the kind of dilapidated building that overlooks the park. Was that the whole sort of ward system of the hospital as well? Because it's a beautiful building. I'm
not sure. I think it was linked to the thermal hospital, but I believe, like in the latter years, it was more like workshops and different things like that. But also, I think it's had planning permission, hasn't it, to be renovated into a hotel.
Excellent. Oh, so glad to hear that, because it's delightful. What an amazing place.
Yeah, it's a shame it's going to be a hotel, but it would be nice if it could be something else for the community, you know. But they've done that area up quite a lot, actually, since we first arrived. They've improved that area a lot. But I think I went to the thermal hospital about 9 months ago just to go and find out some more information, because I was quite interested in it myself. And everything was closed down because of the pandemic, obviously. So I'm gonna take a trip probably next week again. Now I've been reading the diaries again, and go and see how people can get treatment there, really, because I definitely think it would be helpful for lots of people, especially at the moment.
Yes. And I mean, it's a therapeutic stay as well, isn't it? It's a real contrast to going to a doctor for a 10-minute appointment.
Yeah.
This is a residential stay, isn't it? Where you really feel like you're being treated in every sense.
Yeah.
And what a great thing to do.
I mean, if you go back 80 years or so, I mean, I used to live in Bournemouth in England, in the south of England. And when I was there, I noticed that it just had lots of churches, and people said, oh, it's for newlyweds and deads. And people used to like come to Bournemouth and stay in these hotels. And so loads and loads of hotels, but people used to just go and sit in the fresh air, and that was their treatment. So I think there was a lot more adherence to nature, you know, like, so people would just be wheeled out, put in the fresh air and be air bathed to come back into wellness. And, you know, there's something about thalassotherapy, you know, the water, the salt, all the minerals, you know, we've got clay deposits in all the beaches nearby. You know, we went down a couple of weekends ago to Salida Porto, which is not far away, and we saw people like covering themselves in the local clay. It's wonderful, all the different things you can do.
Yeah, there's a beach in near Peniche. It's called Consolação, and there's big rocks there. The rock formations are quite unique, and if you go there in the summer, you'll see lots of older men and women laying on them, because they say that they're therapeutic and they help with the bones and with I guess it's the minerals, and it's quite high iodine as well on that coastline. So it's really interesting. But if you take a trip there in the summer, you'll see everybody basking like seals on the rocks. It's cool.
We might join them.
What a lovely thing to do. Okay, so all of this needs to go in the holistic directory. We've had a pretty good reception, Jenny, to the idea of doing a holistic directory or holistic Portugal directory. So I think it's on its way. It got officially launched tonight. By the way, we go on and on here, and we go through to midnight. At any time when you feel like, oh my God, when are they going to finish? And you want to go to bed, you just let us know, okay? You don't have to stand on ceremony or be around unnecessarily, but we'd love to have you here, but we don't want to wear you out or have you here.
No, it's cool. I've ridden the wave. I've ridden the cortisol wave. I've already, and I'm awake again now. Yeah.
But we're authentic and open. And if you think, okay, I've just had enough of this, just say so, and we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Feral working, evening all. Hello. Feral working sounds like a good idea, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Vertigo can sometimes. We had somebody who was going to but we were thinking maybe an opening for a holistic therapy with Carpe Diem's vertigo earlier on. Can sometimes indicate ear canal blockage or infection. This is so interesting. Warm olive oil. Now, in the UK back in the day, the only time people had olive oil was to put in their ears. They never had it for food, did they? You could only get it from a chemist. You could only buy it from it said olive oil BP, I think, after it.
Yes, it did.
I don't know what that meant, but it meant it was medicinal, didn't it? Rather than something you would put on your food. And it was decades later when you could actually eat the stuff. So the dry needling for Jeff's pain and the lumpy muscle, a few needles across and in the lump. He left them for less than a minute. Immediate sense of calm across my shoulders. Isn't that fantastic? At Alpha Romeo, according to Colin, we took the best sales managers to Morocco. We booked a Hanan massage. But very attractive girls on reception. Colin, you're so unreconstituted. Yes. On reception, we entered the steam room where sumo wrestlers hit us with wet clothes. I think they'd have to pay me to do that, not vice versa. I mean, what was the result, Colin? I wonder. Maybe a shisha pipe in the evening over in Morocco. I don't know, to recover. The best remedy I ever tried was a tincture for tonsillitis, says Andy, comprised of roots and seeds of things like cayenne, chili, mustard, cumin. Make a nice salad dressing as well, mate. Burned like hell, but worked within days and cured. And isn't it interesting? I mean, Andy, did you then think, okay, there must be something in this? I will look at more complementary holistic therapies, or did you just, not ever think about it again? I wonder, apart from tonight. And the Andrew, it is the Andrew Gilchrist. I hear your dulcet tones every Friday night. I love that so much. Alternative medicine is becoming integrated into Western systems, and that research is confirming what has been practiced for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
The chances are your granny actually knows some really good healing. You know, if we actually spoke to our nans and granddads and found out how they did it, there'd be a wealth of knowledge out there. But you know, we're kind of like, we don't really live in those communities anymore where we really listen to them.
Indeed. I'm going to move you up to the top, Jenny, so that you don't get hidden by comments, because that's really rude.
Yeah.
And if at any moment you want to chip in, do, because we were talking this afternoon, weren't we, of the Portuguese folk remedy for a sore throat of boiling an onion with honey. That's a local thing, isn't it? Have you discovered anything whilst you've been in Portugal? I mean, we didn't say that. You live in Portugal. You've been here for a while. I mean, what any folk remedies you've come across in that time?
Here we go. Here's a good one.
Go on.
Sorry, I've got one with maggots in here.
Oh my God.
Vertigo. A few years ago, it was big. Oh, hang on. I've got a funny sound going on in my mic. It was big to put a tea bag on a wound, but the tea bag had maggots in it. They ate dead, infected skin, healing the wound. Not sure if it's still done.
It is still done. They use it in hospitals.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Mainstream, right, Jenny?
Very, very effective. Yeah, mainstream. They come in a sterile tube.
Yeah.
And then you do your dressing like you would normally do it. And they put the maggots into the wound, and then they dress the wound, and then they leave it for a few days, or I don't know how long it is.
How common is that? And what kind of wounds do they do?
When I was in the hospital, I only saw it happen a couple of times, and it was the wound nurse, the specialist wound nurse that covered the whole hospital that used to come and do it because it's so specialised. But it was like last ditch attempt, really. But actually, it was really effective. It worked really well. But people are very squeamish about it, obviously.
Yeah. And hence why it's used as a last resort.
Yeah,
I suspect as well. I mean, you know, with wounds, it's quite amazing. When our little dog Peggy was recovering from a really difficult labour, the vet sent me home with a pot of honey, and said, when you know, she taught me how to do the dressing on Peggy's belly, and said,
she did wrong.
I put the net on backwards to hold the bandage on. And so when she pooed, it came out like French fries. So I only did that one. Through the string net. But I did the rest of the time. I was pretty good. And honey, what an amazing compound or chemical or whatever honey is for putting on wounds as well. And I was really surprised to see that, because you know, vets can be the most sort of pharmaceutical, can't they, in so many ways? And there she was, giving me a pot of honey to take home with the dog. So excellent. Maggots there. I thought Dom was talking about the mustard seeds were actually smoking, like Colin's needles, smoking mustard seeds, thus possibly creating wider acceptance for so many seeking healing. I think we're on the way. What do you think, Jenny? Do you think integration is taking place on that? I mean, you're all about the integration, aren't you? Do you feel positive about this?
Yeah, definitely. I do. I see, even in the last 18 months, I think there's been an explosion of people across the whole board of different complementary and alternative therapies that seem to be getting a lot more interest from people. And I think COVID has actually done that a little bit, because people have sought to seek alternatives on how to prevent and improve their immune system. So I think there's people looking in different directions, and there's so many different modalities and so many different things for people to try. And I think there's something to suit everybody, really. But essentially, it kind of, like you say, a lot of it is energy medicine, but it's wrapped up in different ways. So you've got vibrational therapies or color therapies or Reiki. You have lots of different ones that people might feel more connected with. And then you have like lots of people are into herbal and natural remedies. I think we've become a lot more conscious, actually, probably over the last 20 years. People have become more aware of alternatives that probably actually wasn't that long ago that were used, but it was probably just out of living memory. I guess the pharmaceutical industry really took off after the Second World War in the 50s. And then, like, obviously the NHS was formed around the same time. So I think there was a big push then towards pharmaceutical methods. And I think now people are realizing that, you know, we are responsible for our own health. and we ought to look at different directions in ways that suit us, because, you know, one person might think that a coffee enema is, you know, the worst thing that they could ever have, but they might look at something completely different that might also give similar effects, but it's something that they're more attuned with. And I think that's really important, because you have to, when you're taking on any alternative or complementary therapy, you have to be engaged that that thing may work, otherwise there's no point in doing it. So if you're not engaged, or you're not really sure, or you're a bit of a skeptic about something, you're not going to get the results from that therapy that you would if you were really, you'd researched it, you understood what the science was, or the physiology on how it works, and then you're much more open to receive, I think. So I think definitely, yes, I see it in my friends and family as well, people that have never considered that. I mean, I'm in my 40s, and I grew up in the years of the Spice Girls, and, you know, everybody drinking pints, and everybody was smoking in pubs, and eating lots of meat, and nobody was that conscious about health really at that time. I mean, obviously there were some people that were, and then it's definitely evolved. Like, you see it in the fitness industry, and I think that's where it kind of has really kicked off, is in the fitness industry, because like the CrossFitters, I did CrossFit for a while. The CrossFitters are really aware of health. They're really aware of like alternative ways that they can help their performance and their overall like optimization. So yeah, I definitely think it's moving in the right direction. And I think that the health services are really struggling, and that service is not going to improve. I think there's just going to be more and more strain on traditionals like the modern medicine model. And I think people will automatically look for other things that they can find that might help them.
Yeah.
Amazing. And you speak from a very interesting point of view, I think, because you spent a lot of time inside the National Health Service, right, of the UK, as well as making your own research and investigation. So you've got a very particular and excellent view, I think, on this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the hospital's a strange environment, because it's an acute environment where things need to be done, and almost it's too late by the time somebody's got to hospital.
Yes.
Maybe there was things that could have been done a lot before. So the hospital environment I worked in is it's a very clinical, sterile environment because of the nature of the beast, I suppose. And that in itself isn't that conducive to healing. You know, they used to have these big sanatoriums, TB hospitals, where they'd have grounds that they could walk around in, and balconies where they could sit in the sun and all that kind of thing. But just it's very difficult. I think they shifted away from that to push everything into the hospitals, and then they've subdivided everything and specialized everything, and it's made it very one organ, one system delivery of medicine, really. And I think things are changing, and it's very difficult to change things like, for example, in the NHS, everything comes from the top down. So even if you wanted to introduce a complementary therapy, you have to fight a lot of, you know, fights to get that established in the hospital. I know I work with a chronic pain nurse. I used to share an office with her, and she went and paid and did her own acupuncture course. And she asked the hospital if she could introduce acupuncture into her chronic pain. And it took her ages. It took her ages to get approval, to get it all signed off, to write the policies, to get all the liability stuff done. And it was very difficult for her to do. So the system is not really set up for the two to go hand in hand. Sure. In primary care, that's when, in the community, that's where they should be able to make the difference. Sorry, I'm going to cough. Go on. So in primary care, that's when the prevention is done, you know, and the healing can really be done before they get to hospital. So, yeah, I do think things are changing, but it's not really, the system isn't really set up.
No, you're right. And, and it's getting more and more acute, isn't it? It's dealing with emergencies and dire circumstances rather than helping people educate themselves and take responsibility for their health over a longer term. So that's a really very interesting perspective. While you have a drink of water, let's go have a few more comments here. I had a Chinese head and neck massage, involved being seated whilst an old guy beat me around the head, shoulders and neck. Sorry, again, we know Andy, that's why we're allowed to laugh. Even lifted my trapezoids off my shoulders. Hurt like hell, but afterwards I was floating. It sounds like a grandparent who kind of, slaps you on the thigh and says, now your Gray's knee doesn't hurt anymore. It's like a displacement therapy, isn't it? There were grandparents like that in the 70s. What's this here? I've not done anything weird treatment-wise, but after a mystery illness I had in the late 90s, where I couldn't keep any food down, I switched to a macrobiotic diet for several months. This is going to be interesting. It healed me, says Anne. And my comments are a bit slow to load here, so just give me a moment as that comes onto the screen. Actually, I think the comments are being really mindful and relaxed. They're taking ages. It is based on Zen Buddhism, macrobiotics, yin-yang balance, lots of Japanese food, meat, miso soup. You'd have to be desperate to eat that. Daikon radish. Sorry, come back to dishwater in a minute. Miso soup, daikon radish, massage as well. Okay, I couldn't keep it up long term, but it definitely solved my issue. I'm so glad to hear that, and ignore me. I'm sure there is really nice miso soup available. Is there, Mrs. M and Jenny? Well, you know about these things.
I quite like miso soup, actually.
So do I.
Okay, I'll move.
You can always add little bits into your soup, can't you? You can always.
Yeah, but then it's like Portuguese stone soup, isn't it? You know, you boil up a stone, and then you say, "Has anyone got any seasoning?" I'll just put that in, and then it's not quite right. Has anyone got any vegetables? Okay, let's put the veg in. Has anyone got any stock now? Maybe a bit of meat. Let's put that in. Oh, that's lovely soup. What's that stone doing in there? We'll chuck the stone out, and then you've got a lovely soup. And is that what you're suggesting with the miso?
No, I like it.
Okay, all right. Well, let's eat miso soup together one day. I'm happy to
do some miso soup.
I know somewhere that does good miso soup. Actually, it's Kabuki Sushi, the sushi place in.
Yeah, we've seen it. It's very nice.
The miso soup's very nice.
All right, I'm open to that. I should not be so silly, I suppose, or judgmental and closed-minded. Okay. I think Anne's talking about her man cave experience, which I think can be quite therapeutic as well. That's fantastic. 14 hours sleep, that always helps, doesn't it? Very interesting. Jenny, I mean, what would you recommend? Is it right to call you an advisor to people with their health, and how does that work as far as sleep recommendations go? Health advisor or health coach or integrative health coach or whatever.
Yes, well, sleep is especially important in restoring your diurnal rhythm. So we all have a natural rhythm, and if we were without our daily interference in life and the fact that we're impacted by lots of other things, naturally we would want to fall asleep around 9:30 as your cortisol levels start to drop, and they should drop. And then you should wake up really with this kind of sunrise, 6:37. And if you camped for a week in the middle of nowhere without any interruptions, that's probably the rhythm that you would naturally get into. And when you push those rhythms, so when you start wanting to fall asleep in the evening, you've probably put all the kids to bed, you've sat down, you've had your dinner and you've had a glass of wine or something, and you're starting to feel a bit sick. That's exactly when you should go to bed. Because if you don't go to bed then and go to sleep, your cortisol starts to rise and it gets much more difficult to fall asleep as well.
Okay.
So in terms of sleep, I think 14 hours, I mean, sometimes people need to sleep 14 hours if they're sick or if they're exceptionally tired. But the advice is to try and keep into a steady routine. So like say, and the aim would be to get between 8 to 9 hours sleep. That's like the optimum, really. But some people need more sleep, some people need less sleep. Are you getting a bit free?
Yeah.
Only every now and then. It's fine. We can cope with that. I think it's a miracle at all that we're live streaming together. Just so, in case you've just joined us, this is the Feelgood Portugal Show. Jenny is with us, Jennie Lowes, who's on the Silver Coast, which we think is going to be the new Bay Area, not unlike the Bay Area in California. This is the new Bay Area of Western Europe. Okay, and I think we're predicting amazing things here on this side of Portugal. Go on, love.
And we've got somebody here sharing their experience and their skills. So Ana Lucia is saying, nice topic. Good evening. I'm a qualified therapeutic aromatherapist and reflexologist. Love all holistic therapies. And she's also adding in, also done Bach flower remedies, Indian head massage, hot stone therapies, all fabulous. I would absolutely agree with that. I was sharing in the sorry, there's a bit of a delay between my speech and the and my image. It's really, really, yeah, it's really distracting. But when you and I were talking, Jennie, earlier this week, I mentioned that I'd had chronic fatigue syndrome, and I kind of almost got rid of it. I had reflexology once every 2 weeks, and it really kept me together. There was something about it that just kept me together. And then after about 1.5 years of reflexology, for some reason, I just stopped it. It almost felt like I needed to actually have a breakdown. I really needed to just let whatever wanted to come through me to come through. And literally, you know, within 2 weeks, my whole body's just seemed to collapse. But it really felt like, you know, from my experience, that the reflexology just gave me what I needed to keep me going and keep me going and keep me going. It's a really, really strong therapy. I love it. So, yes, very excited to have my feet done at any time.
Anna Lucia, certainly one for our directory then, I think. Keep in touch and let's get this directory moving tonight.
Yeah.
So yeah, Feelgood Portugal, we do this every Saturday night. This is for people who like to go within instead of going out on a Saturday night.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, and on that matter, I haven't done my 10 minutes of meditation today, and I'm thinking this show ends at midnight. And part of my daily routine and bond and to stay in integrity, it's really important for me to do 10 minutes meditation. So what I'm going to do is it's going to be a bit like the BBC. There are certain times of the day where you can listen to cricket on the BBC. It says, we go to long wave now, where you'll be able to listen to the test match and stay on FM for the news and all the other boring things that Radio 4 does. And so that's what we're going to do. Towards the end of, or in the next hour, I'm going to go and Louise is going to leave me on the screen meditating, because it's one of the most boring things you can do on a live stream. But you'll see me, and there'll be a link. So if you want to go to the fork in the road for the 10 minutes meditation, you can join me. Or if you want to stay and listen to Jennie and Louisa talking, which is obviously going to be the better bet. But there may be people who do want to do 10 minutes meditation as well, because I've been trying to do live stream meditations now for probably the last 10 years, I think. And I've tried to make it exciting, but I'm having to come to terms with the fact that it's one of the most boring things you can do live. Well, live at all, just sit there in silence. And people are thinking, is this guy's live stream broken? And the other day I didn't even put the sound on. So it was like, no one could hear me anyway, 33 minutes into it. So if you want to do that, if you want to have a little bit of a guided meditation, a bit of peace today, and help me with my daily routine integrity, I'll go to a fork in the road a little bit later, and I'll put the link in the chat for that. But I'll stay on the screen. And then maybe we can do a scientific experiment, and you can assess my before and after state with the meditation. So we'll see how that goes.
I'll tell you what, I could come down and feel your aura before and after, if you like.
I am so open to that.
Because earlier, I mean, here's something that I'm noticing right now, and this is where it might get a little bit esoteric. We know a healer friend that lives in Foz, who's really, really like a strong healer, and she had a bit of a knee problem. Was it last week, the week before? And for some reason, I just said, "Oh, you know, do you want me to put my hands on you? You know, like Reiki wise, because I was doing Reiki as a child, you know, before I actually had my Reiki training. But I think everyone can do it, you know, if we really realize that we're doing it. And so I put my hands on, and like really strange thing happened. It like whatever was going on was really different to how it used to be. It came on really strong, really fast. And it felt like we were both transported somewhere else. And then I offered to do remote healing with her, which I don't normally ever even suggest. I never feel confident doing it, but something's changed. And then I've had a few different moments, sort of like wanting to tune in and do healing this week. And then earlier tonight, I realized I could actually see my aura around my hands again. And as a child, I used to see auras around trees, plants, hands, people's shoulders. I used to see it all the time. And over time, you know, you kind of ease away from it. And I can always feel sort of like energy. I can sense it with my hands. But tonight I saw it really clearly with my own eyes for the first time in about 10 years. And I was thinking, wow, something's shifting. It feels like, you know, I'm curious to know, any of you sort of like practitioners out there that can sense healing and sense energy, what is happening for your sensations of energy right now? Is it changing? Like Jim White, Jim White listening in. How is it for you? And the lovely lady who does reflexology, whose name I've already forgotten.
Anna Lucia.
Anna Lucia. Or how is the energy with the people that you're working with? Are your sessions changing right now? I'm really curious to hear about the residual energy that everyone's aware of. And when you were talking about that kind of matrix field, whatever it was that you had, like the treatment with the crystals and the laminate, Jenny. Earlier this year, I spoke to somebody in, funnily enough, in the Bay Area, not our Bay Area, but, over like 8 hours or whatever it is, 13 hours away from us.
California, yeah.
I spoke to somebody who does biofield tuning, so uses tuning forks. And very similar to you, actually, Jenny, when you were saying she was like kind of tuning in and knew about your past. When the lovely guy that I was talking to, Bobby Vasquez, when he uses his tuning forks, the sound changes when it gets to an area of dis-ease. And he'll say, oh, there's this here, and the feelings, the emotions come up, and then he knows to hold it there, and all of a sudden it dissipates and the clarity of the sound changes. I just love all that.
I mean, that's got to be worth a look.
Louisa. I've
Sorry?
got some tuning forks. Yeah, I've got some tuning forks. I need to. I've read some books, but I need to go on a course really to introduce it to my practice. But I have a full set.
I want to get some.
They're
brilliant.
brilliant.
Some for our lot. So let's talk.
Do you know what's amazing about them is when I ever show them to any kids, like if kids come round and I get them out, and the kids, as soon as you do that to a kid, they all go, straight away. They hear it, so they're so in tune with it, definitely. But it's
the most amazing thing. It is so it's miraculous. It's miraculous in its own way, isn't it? That you can do that with a bit of metal, and then when that's demonstrable, that man can see and probably show you that yourself. That's quite remarkable. And why we don't look into that more is a mystery, isn't it? I guess.
I'm sure I'm not the only one here that's been to a sound bath, with crystal singing bowls.
So beautiful.
I remember it's amazing. And, I went to one in Indonesia where there were about 40 or 50 bowls, and there were about that many people, all with the yoga mats and whatnot. And we were all like sighted around the bowls and the bowls around us. And it was incredible, feeling it coming through your feet and yeah.
Well, we were at the beach today. Sorry, Jenny, go on. Please carry on.
No, I was going to say I have a bit of a theory about the energy thing that you were talking about. It's not really a theory. It's there. You can see the evidence of it. So we go through, as I'm sure you know this, but we go through solar cycles every 10 to 11 years.
Yes.
And they're saying that we're at the end of a 5,000-year cycle as well. And we've been at a grand solar minimum. And now we're starting coming out of the grand solar minimum again. And during solar minimums and solar maximums, they've plotted it out that actually there are times of pandemics at solar minimums and maximums. One is probably because we're getting less sun during the solar minimums because it's really weak at the moment. It's starting to gain strength again now, the sun, but it has been really weak. And that coincided with the outbreak of COVID-19. And what they're saying is it'll increase in intensity now until 2025, which is when it'll be at the maximum it's been for quite a long time. So it'll be really positive for humanity in that time. So I think we're coming out of it now and going upwards. But during the times of minimas and maximas, particularly minima, like we are now, any solar flare or coronal mass ejection, they're called coronal mass ejections from the sun, or the solar winds, they will affect the Earth more in terms of the magnetism. So we are being hit with really powerful magnetic waves at the moment, UV light, but also gamma waves. And today it's been really quiet. The Schumann resonance has been really, really quiet for the last few days. And today it's peaked at over 50 again. So today there was a big download of energy that came to Earth, and is closely matched with the solar winds and everything. And there's a theory that if you're in a good space when these blasts happen, that it can be very positive. It can trigger more of an awakening. You can feel the energy more. Or if you're not in a good place, it can kind of manifest itself in anger and, you know, not too nice things happening, or illness as well, which we're seeing a lot of at the moment. So that's what I think is happening now. And funnily, like 10 days ago, I was getting these like mad Kundalini all over body energy shakes. It was really weird. And I haven't had that for probably about 2 years, I think, the full body shake. But that was just like a couple of weeks ago. So I do think like things are starting to shift. Yeah. And I think lots of people that use energy and that can feel, and they're really feeling it right now. And it should be, for most people, it should be very positive. But it depends, I think, on our frame of mind that we're in when these blasts are happening. But it kicked off really on the 31st of January 2017. There's always shifts in the resonance. But they also match with brainwaves as well. So, you know, we've just like the theta, I think we've been in delta a lot, like a very sleepy brainwave. And then all of a sudden we have these big blasts of like gamma waves, which trigger a bit of an awakening. I find it fascinating, really fascinating.
Me too. And this is astronomically measurable stuff you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we resonate at a frequency like 7.83 hertz, more or less. And so does everything around us. Yes. You know, and these shifts and energy, like the force of the waves that are coming, have been so strong. But on the 31st of 2017 was like kind of when it really started to get a lot more unstable. And I've been tracking it since before the pandemic. And you can see that on the chart, the big spikes, they're not really spikes, but they call them spikes. But the big increases in the power of the Schumann resonance usually happen at a time where it seems like more and more people are waking up to what's going on around us. So like, say, for example, when it was the January 6th, you know, the
Tiananmen Square?
No, with the Biden and Trump.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
The insurrection, they called it.
Yeah.
When that happened, there was a big increase in energy. And I think it's like globally, we're aware a bit more of what's going on, and we're gaining more information, and we're being more enlightened. And that's showing in the Schumann resonance. It's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. Glad you joined us tonight. Fantastic.
Yeah, I want to add in. I've got quite a few astrology books on trading and trading patterns, and the sunspots are monitored by the astrological traders, and they will peak them over a series of different cycles. So there's like a 6-year cycle, an 18-year cycle, etc., etc. And all these like awakening moments also correspond with very sort of unstable markets. And a lot of that depends on when the markets were initially started. So if they're started at a time of a full moon or a maximum or a minimum, then it will be programmed into that into that particular market, you know, so it will have a sensitivity for that particular event.
I wonder if that's to do with because what they say is that there's also lots of civil unrest at those times, and outbreaks of war and things like that as well. So the markets, I guess, tie in with that, don't they? So they're
absolutely
very smart.
And that's how they explain it, actually. You know, if you think of like Uranus, the planet of change and shock and etc., when Uranus changes signs, it usually causes a lot of disruption, you know, with like people, and especially when the moon is in opposition to Uranus and stuff like that. These are really, really big like moments for people, shocking moments. But when you get a really big astrological thing with something like Uranus and all that change comes up, it also corresponds with the markets because people lose confidence.
And this is why it's useful to live in this is why it's useful to live in multi-generational ways, isn't it? Where the grandparents, the great-grandparents, the parents and the children are together. Because if you live in the most modern of societies, you know, the sort of leading edge progressive, where people are quite atomic and alone, they don't have that frame of reference, do they? Within our own lifetimes, we can't see these patterns. You know, if you're 30 or 40 or 50, you don't know that this has gone on unless you really, study history. But if that's in your household, as the parents remembering things and the grandparents, the great grandparents, what an amazing bank of wisdom you'd have if you knew how to live with those generations, which I think we've also forgotten how to do.
Yeah, and also like you might have all the youngsters doing all their crypto. And you might have all the elders with money stuffed under their carpets and behind radiators and things. And it probably takes all those different, and you might have some like middle-aged people, with gold or silver or something. And it might take a little bit of all of that to make it work for you.
Yeah. And somebody in the family saying, none of that will ever work. What are you wasting your money on that? What are you wasting your money on that cryptocurrency for? You need to go out and work hard. So let's. I mean,
Actually,
we've got lots of.
I just want to add something to Jennie. What Jennie was saying about the magnetism. I read somewhere, and I wish I knew where it was because I'm rubbish if I can't source things, but and reference it. But I read that the magnetic forces are weaker in areas where there is like a collection or like this tendency for awakened civilization. So in places like, I think San Francisco, California, the Bay Area is one of these places with a particularly weak or strong, I don't know which, I'm sure it's weak, magnetic forces because, and it's something to do with, like the ley lines and plates and whatnot on the planet. But apparently like I think it's a weak magnetic force. When there's a weak magnetic force, people feel more able to create their own reality. And where it's a really strong oppressive, people are a lot more conforming. I think the UK has got a very strong one.
Well,
so
it's funny you say that because
you probably do know about it.
Well, I was looking up ley lines a few months ago, actually, and there's the St Michael's ley line that goes through the Tour of Glastonbury, goes through St Michael's in Cornwall, and it actually goes through the Azores, through São Miguel, which is St Michael. Wow. And it's also called the Sete Cidades there, the 7 cities. And the Azores is considered a really powerful energy centre. But there's also apparently another line that comes through that must go near Fatima and Tamar and comes through Sintra.
Sorry, I'm being called. 1 sec.
Okay. Oh, okay.
It comes through Sintra. So there's I think there's 2 very powerful. What's happening with the screen?
No, she's Louisa's got. We do this on a Saturday night. The kids are in bed.
But the screen's going like this.
Oh, is it moving around now? She's put us in a loop of some sort. Is there some weird thing?
It's making me dizzy.
It's because we're talking about ley lines. I'm going to refresh my screen and see if that helps.
Oh no, now I'm throbbing. This is very strange.
Had a glitch in the. Is that working now, Jennie?
We're going up and down now. We're going
up and down.
No way. Like this.
That's so spooky, isn't it?
I was doing that at one point. No, dude.
That is too spooky for words. That's settled down now, I hope.
No, still doing it, but I'll try not to be distracted by it.
Oh my goodness! What I'll do is I'll kick her out of the, if I can, of the. No, I can't do anything about it. We'll have to wait till she gets back, or just turn our videos off so we can't see. But we can, look at this. This is for. This is for all the people on LSD, says Wolfgang. Good evening to you, Wolfgang. I love technology. I'm reading some of the comments now. I don't even know if you can see them on the screen. I love technology, says Jim. Jesus, says HR. Not the HR department, but somebody called HR. Oh, goodness. This is quite interesting, entertaining. I must admit, haha, not your average globetrotter. So we've got lots of lovely comments to go to. But does it? If I take myself off the screen, does it get any?
No, I'm just flashing now. So you need to come back on.
I've got to come back on. All right. So there I am back on, Mrs. M. I think maybe what I'll do.
This is a little bit trippy, isn't it?
It is so strange. And I can't leave here. Mrs. M, go turn your feed off. That's so bizarre.
We were talking about ley lines. We must be on the money if we're talking about.
I think so. Something spooky's going on now, isn't it?
This is a message for us.
That's really thrown me now. But Tamar definitely comes up in conversations, doesn't it? And again, in the broader point, people talk about the spiritual significance of Portugal. So what say you about what you've learned about Portugal since you've been here, and Fatima and Tamar, and then Troncamento?
Yeah, well, what's really interesting about Portugal is that many years ago it was considered Lusitania. I'm sure you know this, but Lusitania, the Lusitanians are people of the light. That's how they were described, because Luz obviously is light.
Yes.
That's how I understand it. And the Lusitanians worshipped a god that was called Endovilicus or something like that. And he was the god of the underworld, but he was also the god of health and prosperity and vision. He was also, so I think the Portuguese by nature are very spiritually aware. And when I first came to Portugal, people say to me, why do you like to come to Portugal? And I think that the Portuguese have a very pure heart. I feel that in the Portuguese, they have a very, and that they're also very strong. And the Lusitanians were warriors. They fought against the Romans for years and years and years and resisted them for a long, long time. But I think that they're very perceptive, but I think generally on the whole at the moment, they're a bit sedated. They're not really sure what's happening, and I think people are just existing and living. But obviously there's a very strong religious factor here. And especially in this region, they celebrate the Mary, Immaculate Heart of Mary. And Portugal was said to remain as the Immaculate Heart of Mary. I mean, I'm not particularly, here we are, there's something happening now.
Hopefully better.
A little bit, but a bit more distracting.
Oh my goodness. So sorry.
The Fatima story really interested me. And I know that there are some people that say that it's all a big scam. And then there's obviously other people that completely buy into what it is. Yeah. But from the research that I've done about Fatima, I think it's fascinating, particularly about the 3 secrets and also the miracle of the sun. So I don't know if you want me to explain a little bit about Fatima. But
what you start that, and I'm going to go and switch off Mrs. M's thing, which is I think causing this, okay? Because I know about the Fatima miracle of the sun. Could you explain that to people for just a moment?
Yeah, so on the 13th of May in 1917, there was 3 young shepherd children who saw an apparition of an angel, and it told them to return on the 13th of each month, and that they would be delivered messages from the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So they went back and they saw several more apparitions over time. And during that time, there was warnings that if people didn't consecrate to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, that there would be a lot of trouble. And if you think of 1917 was also a time of a solar minimum as well. So they're kind of living in a similar time than we are now. And the First World War had broken out, and also there was the Spanish flu. So there's lots of similarities to what's happening today. But what happened was that on the final, on the 13th of October, 1917, so I think it was like the 7th apparition or something. I can't remember how many there were exactly. Was that 100 to 200,000 people saw the sun do something really strange, and they called it the miracle of the sun. Apparently the sun came down very close and then disappeared again, and then they saw Mary, and she gave the warnings to the 3 children. And the first one was about, she showed the children a vision of hell, the first secret. And she showed the children a vision of hell if Russia didn't consecrate the Immaculate Heart of Mary. But that didn't happen at the time. It only happened, I think, in the 50s because the communists were in charge. So that didn't happen until then. And obviously a lot of blood was shed in the First and the Second World War. And then the third secret was never fully divulged. And I think the two of the youngest children died quite young. They died of Spanish flu in 1919 and 1920. And the third one, Lucia, then became a sister and worked within the church. And she kept the secret for a very long time. And then I think in the 60s, she finally divulged it to the Bishop of Leiria. But the third secret apparently was just that there was going to be the death of a pope. And they didn't declare the full secret. But apparently John Paul II, who was the assassination attempt on John Paul II, he was very fixed on the idea of Mary, the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And he was actually the attempted assassination was exactly 60 years after the first vision, which was on the 13th of May. So he was his attempted assassination was exactly 60 years later. I think it was 60, but it was on exactly the same day. So I don't know whether he was going to reveal the full secret, and whether the full secret was a warning about what's coming now, or I don't know what it was, or whether the whole thing is a story. I'm not sure, but for that many people to have seen it and witnessed it, and for the Sister Lucia to keep that information to herself, and they went through horrible times. The children, that there's rumors that they were, or evidence that they were tortured, and that they were like almost sacrificed. And the two younger ones, they were tied to beds and stuff like that, and they were supposed to sacrifice themselves for the future. But I think what's interesting about, I think you nipped off there, but it's about the miracle of the sun.
Yes, no, and I'm aware of this. We went to an incredible. There's an exhibition in Fatima where you can see an audiovisual show of what happened, and it is extraordinary, isn't it? Because on the one hand, it can be played down as like, well, was that a miracle or not? But the whole event is really intriguing and quite extraordinary. That so many, tens of thousands of people went to this field near Fatima, right? And the sun appeared to dance in the sky, and it goes against I suppose it goes against our rationality and the status quo and the cognitive dissonance and all that sort of stuff. But clearly it warrants further or more open discussion that it might have.
Yeah, well, I think the parallels of what's happening today are quite interesting, because obviously it was the First World War, it was Spanish flu as well at the same time.
Yes.
And communism was really taking hold. The Bolsheviks were really taking hold of everything at the time. And Russia was obviously quite powerful then. So I think it's almost like, the warnings are the same today. And she was trying to maintain that belief in the Sacred Heart. And I think that's almost what Portugal is. It feels to me like Portugal is the Sacred Heart of Europe, or the world, maybe even.
Wow.
There definitely is a purity here. And I wonder whether that's why people have been drawn to come here, because there's a lot of foreigners here. I mean, obviously the beautiful landscape, the wine, the food, and everything else have. But there seems to be a lot more alternative therapists coming into, especially this area. For such a small area, it's not that big really in terms of population, this part. There seems to be a lot of forward-thinking, enlightened people that are moving into the area. And I wonder if that's to help drive the belief again in the Sacred Heart. And it doesn't mean I'm not particularly religious, like I'm not fixed on a particular religion. I believe in the divine, but I'm not fixed in a particular mode. And I've been to Fatima, and it made me feel really uncomfortable, actually. I felt uncomfortable in the grandness of it all.
Yes.
And people on their knees, and I felt it felt like a strange energy there to me. But I think that obviously something happened there that was very, very important. What it was exactly, I guess we'll never really know.
No,
unless
indeed.
we see it again, unless it happens again, and we're here to witness it.
Well, true. I mean, that was so amazing to have this context for Portugal, what we're talking about, the possibility of Portugal, just even this, very sort of mundane idea in a way compared to all of that of a holistic directory. But maybe there is something on the move, and maybe there is something we're a part of here. Really, really brilliant to have you here tonight. And we've really ignored our people in the comments. I'm sorry for that, but you can understand why. We were having a riveting conversation with Jennie here, and then that weird technical thing that happened as well. That was a bit spooky. But going way back, nearly an hour ago, when Stephen was talking about his 14 hours sleep, when we started talking about sleep, it's because he had a fever, and I feel a bit bad about bantering him so heavily there. So hope you're feeling better. That sounds like you are fit. A 14 hours kip seemed to do the trick. Jennie, let's go through a few of these. Some good alternatives from smoking tobacco are the leaves from mullein, marshmallow and sage. Sage, of course, very, very pungent and special vibe about the sage plant. I think that was part of my, what's it called? Sweat lodge ceremony that I did. That was one of the weird things I did. We throw the I Ching each morning to help focus the day. Fantastic, Jim and Mandy. The Placebo Effect. Jump in if any of these pique your interest, Jenny. The Placebo Effect, if our body's healing itself because it's been told it can heal. So, you know, what the important thing is the result, isn't it? Carl, please, you're not allowed to call Stephen weird. You should call him Mr. Weird. Okay. We'll go with that from now on. Dave is here, Mr. Fire Dave. Just realised you're live. Thought I was watching a playback. No, I was sat very still, Dave. Oh no, yeah, we are live, and we welcome your comments tonight. Yes, placebos and the power of suggestion. Von Marcos is here. Marcos Verbon. Hello, Marcos. Always fun to read the extensive side effects on medications. Also quite scary, and you have to have quite a lot of time on your hands, don't you, to read that massive leaflet? I think as well.
And good eyesight.
And very good eyesight. It's as though they're trying to hide it. Apparently, our insurance guy, Nuno, was telling us that there's now a law in Portugal where small print has to be of a certain type size now. Maybe they'll do that with pharmaceuticals as well, ultimately.
It'd be like a book then.
It comes in a free book. Yeah. A few years ago, we could do it on an MP3 and listen to it. A few years ago, yeah, here comes your pharmaceutical podcast for the medication you're about to take. A few years ago, it was big to put a tea bag. Okay, so that was the maggots thing, and you know, I can see that would work, but obviously it's a hard one to swallow, as it were. Anna Lucia is here. That was lovely to hear from you, and I think you should definitely be in our holistic directory. Get in touch with us, do please, Anna Lucia. And Raphael, who we freaked out definitely with our technical thing. They used to do the same thing with olive oil when my mother was a kid. That was what, stick it in your ear, I think. Also done bark flower remedies. Yes, absolutely beautiful they are. Wolfgang was here some time ago, but still, let me say goodnight to the pair of you and Victoria. Boa noite, I'm glad to be here tonight. It was great to have you here. Let thy food be thy medicine, or let food be thy medicine. Also, put it another way, as I always say in this house, better to pay the cook than the doctor. I believe that. BP is British Pharmacopoeia. That's why it was after BP. Thank you for that, Eduardo. Thank you for chipping in with that. I love that people, when people watch and they don't normally comment, but they know something, so they speak out. And thank you for doing that, Eduardo. She's back. Mrs. M's back, but she might break the thing again, like she did when she left just now. I had heat treatment. You and your energy.
What did I do?
When you went from the screen, everything started jumping about like some kind of weird visitation.
Like a strobe.
Yeah, and you'll see in the comments what happened in just a moment when we catch up with them, because we're going back to 10:47 now with Lee. I had heat treatment on my legs after a bad work accident. I don't think it helped much. Swimming and bike riding did the job. Well, whatever works. I would consider alternative remedies over Big Pharma. The tincture was recommended to me by the lady in front of me in the chemist, where I promptly bought it. That's always good, isn't it? The old lady in the chemist, the sage, different
Sorry,
kind of sage.
when you said 10:47, I actually thought you meant that there was some kind of historical treatment from like 10:47 that someone.
Well, just before the Battle of Hastings, 10:47. Okay, a new guy in Scotland. I knew a guy, says Lee, who used honey on cuts. Yeah, Lee. Sorry, that's loading up really slowly. Just have Lucozade and walk it off. That's Lee's kind of thing, isn't it? And a smoke. A smoke and a beer is his cure for many things of an evening. The container she stored it in was formerly a metal cleaner, so I was definitely sketched out. But I didn't dare question Mama with her. So what? It's like your olive oil smelt of Brasso or something like that. But it never did you any harm, Raphael. Jean, isn't it
now, this is good advice. That's very good.
Yeah, but hold on a minute. You've got to go with that, because you're like that. We've got jars here, and you'll put colloidal silver in an old gherkin jar, and it's like, I'll spray colloidal silver on my face. It's like, what's that smell of sour cucumber?
It's actually true.
It's true story. True story. Reducing sugar intake is one of the nicest things you can do for your immune system. Sad but true. Is that what put Portugal to sleep, Jenny?
Maybe.
The pasteleria.
And they also, I think, the Portuguese have one of the shortest overnight sleeps, than in most of Europe. Yeah, I think the Spanish are the only other European nation that gets less sleep than the Portuguese. That's why when you see the kids, sometimes they're always fast asleep going into school and things like that. Because they probably, I remember when the boys were at preschool, and one of the mums said to me, I can't get to bed earlier than midnight. And I was like, why aren't my kids in bed at 7? And then she's obviously at 9 coming into school, and she was exhausted all the time. I think she probably goes to bed earlier now. But I think they're very used to going to bed later and still getting up at the same time.
True.
But that might be why they're a bit more sleepy.
You need your own telly show, the 7 o'clock mum. That'd be as popular as Super Nanny. I tell you that now.
They don't go to bed at 7 o'clock anymore.
I'm sure. I have a friend, Charles, who has Asperger's. He stuttered badly, and I heard a group who suggested massage the muscles in the throat. No kids allowed, but a doc did it for him. And guess, great speech. Isn't that lovely? Fantastic. The healing power of touch. What's the best natural lifestyle that still exists anywhere in the world to follow? And what are the key points worth mentioning? So did we go back to Weston Price and the people that Weston Price discovered? Are these the most natural lifestyles in the world? The people what are they called? The ones who have the apricot kernels, the Hunzers. Are they among the best, Jenny?
I don't know. I thought one of the most healthiest nations was Chad.
Oh, really?
Apparently, in terms of diet, I think. In terms of diet, it's Chad.
Yeah. And the Mediterranean diet is loved.
Yeah, the Mediterranean diet, exactly. I think anything that's as close to nature as it possibly can be is more healthy than anything that's not.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? Dave, I think you might know the answer to that, so chip in. And this young lad, the Aspergic lad, 3 years ago, graduated with an IT qualification. What a lovely, happy ending there. Always heard honey good for minor burns. Excellent, Deagle. And I use natural honey in coffee instead of sugar. Delicious. Same here, Andy. Fire Dave is saying, sounds like there's no money in natural healing. Probably more money to make selling medication. You old cynic, Fire Dave. Herbs, I think you can see on the ladies' faces here what they think about that. They're not even saying anything. Herbs and spices have lots of medicinal uses. Don't get them started. Dave, don't do that. Medicinal uses. My gospel is Thomas Bartram's Book of Herbal Medicine. I don't know that, but we should perhaps look it up. And I shouldn't have said that about miso, should I? Look, miso is nice. Miso is great. I just haven't had the right. Maybe I actually had dishwater instead, and someone gave it to me as a joke. Nail soup had a similar recipe. Yeah, it's an old fairy tale, isn't it? It's a good one too. Grandmother's tale for reflux: boil ginger ale. Interesting. And do you have scotch in it as well there, Don? I think you might. Double flotation tank. My mate loved it, slept well. Why double? What's double about it? I spent the whole time pushing him away as he kept floating into me. Oh, double.
It might be a double, like couples.
Yeah, come on, Colin. It's usually an intimate couples thing. But how annoying is that if your mate is snoring next to you and keeps floating into you asleep and you're trying to tune out and relax?
That just sounds like sharing a bed with your husband.
Which no therapist ever said is good for you. I knew alarm clocks were bad for you. So true, Andy. Got the bed, get on the live chat. So he's gone to bed and he's now on the live chat. That's excellent. Reflexology is amazing. And cats. Now, the healing power of cats. Except at 3 a.m. when they're trying to get milk out of your buttock or something like that on top of the duvet. What is that about?
I love cats. They're so good.
No, I don't. Okay. In my late 20s, I was interested in massage therapy. I was in Albuquerque, says Nubianet, visiting my boyfriend. I had an energy work session more as a potential student. It was so freeing. I dumped the boyfriend. Poor bloke. Love foot massages, says Andy. Don't we all, though? I mean, it's just something about, it's in the Bible, isn't it? The washing and the massaging of the feet. It's just so basic for human beings. Thanks. Nice discussions. Thank you, Seth Renio. There's a big catch up to do here.
I don't know if we've got enough time to do all these comments. I don't mean to be an old.
Say that. You can't say that. It's true, because I've got to peel off to do my meditation. We've got to say that
There's 40 minutes worth of comments to catch up on.
You can't not say that Dave G keeps seeing butterflies. If somebody shares that with you, you've got to put it on the screen, haven't you? And he's talking about the energy thing going on here. There are so many alternative ways we can heal. And thank you, Jenny, for reminding us we have to believe in our healing. Thank you, Wolfgang. The mind is so powerful. Prior to moving here to Lisbon, I was doing sound therapy and hoped to, oh yes, of course, hope to get back to it once my bowl sound table and instruments. See, the people are gathering. I've used tuning forks. Everything is energy. Fantastic. I'll go through it real quickly then. Yes, on the tuning forks. I'm so happy to hear you use the word disease. Yeah, you talking my language there. Sniffles and chills. Going around here in the UK, our little girl and Fiona here have to try a dash of ginger and a spoon of honey in lemon tea. Good thing. That's a good thing.
You know what I absolutely swear by with any kind of congestion is, and I was saying this with you the other day, Jenny, is a little bit of what's it called? Apple cider vinegar. Yeah. It absolutely decongests straight away. But maybe kids probably won't like it very much.
All right. While you're talking, I'm going through the comments here. Dave's had an energy shift by the sound of it. Hi, folks. HR are here, everybody. Act normal. Faye folks to the blame. I'm sure it doesn't stand for human remains, does it, in that context? EMF is powerful in nature, absolutely. While facilitating the groups, we focus on the energy of the group and look to help move the collective energy forward. Yes, rather than focusing on the one heckler. That's good facilitation, isn't it? Or that person. Why is that person not smiling? Do I have to do something to please that person in the front row? It takes being aware of several levels of energy at the same time. Yes, quite a skill, and we know that Jim teaches that. Anna Lucia, silver prices are rising, so buy, it's the future. Yes, and colloidal silver too. Beverly's here, everybody. Good evening. Hi, kiss for us. When I was 13, I was very unwell, and my mother called a spiritual healer in whilst awaiting the doctor coming to the house. The doctor was astounded by my recovery and was mind blown by the change from what she had originally reported to how I was when he got there. The doctor told my mother I had a meningitis virus. I'd been very open to healing since. That's amazing, isn't it? And what do the doctors say? Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Oh, goodness, this is quite entertaining. So this is where you left, and it caused these comments, love, okay, when you pushed whatever button you pushed. Look, Jesus says, this is for the people on LSD. I love technology. The energy is high, says Dave G. Jiving like disco dancing divas, huh? So we were moving around the screen. How much alternative medication is dismissed by corporate pharmaceutical companies? A lot of our grandparents' old treatments work. The soap, poultice, or salt water never did us any harm.
Yes. Right. I'm very partial to a bit of salt water, and also I've got a little vial of turpentine. For when I'm ready for it. Not ready at the moment. I like to have a few things at the back of our cupboard just in case, because you never know when the supply of what you might need will disappear. You know, like whenever I move somewhere new, I'm always looking out for my nearest rosehip tree, elderflower, you know, and I have like a little map of healing places. But I think it's really important that we understand where we can get the things we need.
Absolutely. Now, was there a transit in Uranus? Was there a strange energy? Or did you just leave your headphones on the space bar? I think maybe that's what happened.
Is that what I did? Is that what I did?
I think that's what you did, and it caused absolute chaos for me and Jenny. Like, we talk about vertigo. Okay. This is so funny.
Back, aren't I?
Oh, it was madness for a little while. Okay. The producer account hasn't been fully disabled.
I'm so sorry.
EMF way. Just need to add music, assuming you're using StreamYard. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for all of those. And then Jenny was talking about the spiritual significance of Portugal and places in Portugal. So Sintra came up. A really, really nice name.
That's where I left the conversation. You were talking about was it the Mary Magdalene?
Absolutely. You've got to watch that again. You've got to watch that. So someone talked about Lusitania. Yes, Antonio F knows about this. And we'll get you on one day, Antonio. We'd love to talk to you about Lusitania. Sintra, well, we are in it, aren't we? But the ancient sort of representation would be wonderful one evening. Sintra was known as the Mountain of the Moon.
That's interesting because the Serra di Estrella, obviously, is the Mountain of the Star.
Oh,
yeah. Interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
And also, have you been down to Evora, where they have the stones?
Not yet, no.
You have to go.
Okay.
I'm planning to go down on the solstice.
We're waiting until the cold, probably the solstice would be a good time actually, because we have to watch the temperature here because our kids just and me with my hair color, I'm not really good in the real heat. I've got to.
Yeah, well, it'll be December, won't it? So it's very powerful. The stones.
Okay.
It's amazing. You can just walk straight in. You can walk around. You can touch the stones. There's no restrictions. It's incredible. There's 2 sites in Evora.
Amazing. Okay, we've
and
got to do
Evora is well worth to go to because there's the Capellas des Ossos. I didn't say that very well, but it's the
bone chapel. Yes,
it's really. Don't take the kids there if they're a bit sensitive because it's pretty.
Maybe the Lusitanians used the byproducts of this for that. I don't know. And then we talked about the children at Fatima, and I said we saw that audio-visual show. The children had a good ability of foresight. James saying, "This is what happens when people have mushrooms." It's what Mrs.
I have actually done mushrooms.
But this is what happens when Mrs. M leaves her headphones on a space bar. I think. I do believe in the miracles of Our Lady of Fatima, says Anna Lucia. Fair enough. I love the direction this has taken. A great conversation, even with the wacky screen pulsation. We'll try and do it again for you next weekend, okay? Loving the conversation, says Joao F. Thank you for joining us, everybody, because I need to go and do my meditation while Jennie and Louisa keep... what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over the comments to you two while I go off now. Is that all right with you, Mrs. M?
Yeah, you okay to stay, Jennie?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, because there's
she's much harsher than me.
There's a comment here actually. Wolfgang sharing that Eileen McCusick was the lady who was doing biofield tuning and has a book on it. And actually, when I spoke to Bobby Vasquez in I can't remember where he is, somewhere like San Fran area, he actually trained with her. So yeah, I can totally confirm that. Andrew is saying the universe is full of many forms of energy, thermal, acoustic, radiation, light, all based on a huge frequency range. The sun is one of the key driving forces of our solar system. It's funny because I never really thought of getting into astrology as being something to do with healing, but it really is. When I look at somebody's chart, really, to me, it represents the sort of like magnetics or the frequency that person was born with. I love it. Solar winds are charged particles emitted as far as Pluto. I had the same a few weeks ago. Oh, is that with your show, Dave?
The Kundalini, I think. He was, I think.
Oh, right. It's either Kundalini or a strobing StreamYard set. So Andrew Gilchrist at EMF, we've done that one, haven't we?
I think I've done all of these. I think you're a bit behind the times, but I'm going to go now.
Through, don't you?
It's at this point in the show, everybody, that I'm going to go off and meditate, and you can join me on this the link that I've put below, and you can check in on before and after. So just before the end of the show at midnight, I'll come back. And I'll be refreshed, and my aura will be enlarged. It's going to be amazing, okay? And you'll see me. You might, if I fall asleep, will you shout down from upstairs? If I drop off during the meditation as well.
I'll come down and draw a No, I won't draw a moustache on you, but I'll draw
a shaving foam. Shave off one of my eyebrows while I'm asleep, and people will love that. Okay, I'll leave you to it.
Have a nice meditation. Bye.
Enjoy.
Oh, he really is off.
Is he going to stay on the screen?
He's going to stay on the screen so we can watch him. So what energy, we'll come to the rest of the comments in a second, but I just really want to find out, with energetic healing, is there one that you've wanted to try and have yet to try yet, Jennie?
Try for myself or try to practice?
Oh, both.
Well, there is something that I find fascinating, and that's have you heard of Willem Reich?
Yes,
So-
I wanted to build one of his orgasmatron thingy.
Well, I've got a book that tells me how to build one. So his organ accumulator, it was called. But if anyone doesn't know about Willem Reich, he's definitely someone to go and research, because he was completely discredited and then arrested and put in prison, and he died in prison. But he was one of Freud's students, but he had a different belief system to Freud. And, you know, I think Freud's beliefs have actually done people a lot of harm in some ways. Obviously, some of his is the very basis of psychology, but I think in terms of some of his ideas, I think it might have done more harm than it's done good. And Reich went down very much the vibrational frequency, color spectrum route, and he had very good results with that. And he had some controversial ideas as well, you know, but they were. I watched a fascinating documentary about him. I'll see if I can find it and post it, but it was really interesting. But that's something I'd like to try. I'd like to build one and try. Luckily, I've got a very handy partner who could probably help me build it. But I'd like to give it a go. And I know that like lots of people are using red light therapy. I went to see a friend today for a yoga session, and she's just got a red light therapy lamp.
When did you find time to do that? You were on the beach with me until half
That was
4.
this morning. That was at 10 o'clock till 10 till 11. It was just down the road. So it was, it was a free session. I had to take it up. I don't do yoga anywhere near as much as I should do. So that's something that I'd like to try. What else? I'd love to go and learn more about Ayurvedic medicine. I'd love to go over to India and learn from a specialist over there. I'd love to do that. Because there's so much. They really did know a lot, you know, a lot. They knew, you know, more than we know now, I think.
Wow.
And it was very much focused on body type. They focused a lot on elimination and movement of the body and breathing and everything else. And they understood the environment impacted our health, which we've kind of forgotten and then relearned again. Forgotten because we were told that actually it's not a problem when it is. But I don't know what else really. There's so much to learn. I mean, I think what I know is that I know nothing really. Like I know stuff, but I really, compared to the amount of knowledge that's out there, I just have to be guided where my energy takes me, you know. And I hope I can balance the both with some of the more modern techniques like the lab testing and all that kind of thing with some of the ancient techniques. I'm actually learning about iridology at the moment. It's something that I'm quite interested in.
I had a session when I was in Bali and it was fascinating. It was really good.
Yeah, but I need to get a camera because you have to get a special camera to be able to look properly at the eye. But that's something I'm expanding, and the tuning forks is definitely something that I want to be able to put in my practice as well. Definitely, because I use them like therapeutically for me and my family, and I definitely see the benefit in them for sure. I mean, doing a whole session of the chakra ones with the different frequencies, it feels so nice.
Yeah, very supportive and nurturing. I think we should just go and finish off with the comments. But am I the only one that feels like I'm watching a seance? Let's calm down. It looks like he's like channeling some force.
What is he chanting? What's he saying?
I don't know. I think he's probably guiding people into meditation. He's probably saying, yes, and we can just be gentle now. And that's right. Just be kind with yourself. Yeah, that's good. No need to think. Or something like that.
I think you're lip syncing, actually.
Am I? Oh, how weird. I guess you end up doing that, don't you? Right. So we've got a lot of things just to share. Sorry if I miss out any of your comments. I'm just trying to get to roughly where we were. Okay, so James, mushrooms seem to heighten reality. I guess it depends on the dose. Have you done mushrooms before?
You talking to me?
You don't have to. I did mushroom chocolates in Bali, and
I have dabbled in the past. Yes, I'm very open to different things like that. You know, I was a big party girl when I was younger, but actually out of yeah, I'm not going to say anymore.
That's fair enough. Yet to be there, maybe. Loving
Yeah.
your conversation. Thank you very much, Joelle. James is saying, whatever floats people's boats, as long as they don't want to force me to swim in the water that floats that boat. Oh, my voice is getting a bit funny there. Sorry for any distortion. We've got loads. I'm so sorry, everybody, that we're not going to get to all of these. Square Eyes is talking about functional medicine. I think that's what you practice, isn't it, Jenny, really?
It's more, there's parts of functional medicine. A lot of that is lab testing directed and using like optimal doses of supplements and a lot of the other stuff that's involved in integrative health as well. So it is kind of has a basis of functional medicine, but it's not pure functional medicine.
Got some interesting comments from James here. Don't know about herbs and spices. I know that sticks and stones may break my bones, but wigs and chains excite me. Carl, we're such a lovely lady. I would have thought you'd have better things to do on a Saturday night. Well, don't you know? Capricorn 12, who we actually met this week, said Indian head massage really helps office workers relax. In fact, I worked at a place where we every now and again had masseurs and Indian head massagers coming in to do a bit of work on people if they needed it. I think that's a really great way of doing it. Dave's saying, I was researching what was happening to me and I found out Kundalini awakening, and then it was mentioned this evening. Wow. Well, it's amazing that you're having that Kundalini awakening. I work with a few people who guide people who are new on their awakening, because it can be quite shocking for people when they have that kind of experience in one go, especially if you're not expecting it. Wow, congratulations. Adding honey to apple cider vinegar and drinking it like warm tea isn't half bad. Yeah, we call them honeygers. So we often start our day with a honeygo. It's really great. I love it. Can you do some remote healing now and send a few energy vibes, please? You know what, Dave? I will tune into you, not right now, but when I finish the show. And I invite anybody else that would like to send Dave some remote healing to, I don't know, think nice thoughts for him, healing thoughts for him. And let us know if there's something you want us to specifically focus on. I don't know what that S was. James is saying, come on, people, smash up the likes. Yes, bring it on. Let's do that. Thank you. And also, if you're feeling a bit generous, I would like a few more followers, because I am, I think, only 4 people away from hitting 500. And Carl really takes the mickey out of me because he's got almost 9,000 followers on his Good Morning Portugal. Hang on. Charmander's Bestie is saying, I love this channel. That's all. Have a good night. Well, thank you very much for popping by and letting us know that. That's great. Capricorn 12, Nazare has some powerful healing vibes. Yes, and so does San Martino de Porto. I was amazed how relaxed I was when I visited over the last 5 days, even with doing a 600-mile road trip from the Algarve and back. Yeah, I think you're a little bit surprised at just how cool this area is. It's brilliant, isn't it, Jenny?
Yeah, well, some people say it's the California of Europe, this area.
Yes.
And I feel a bit like that when you drive down into Foz, the rail. You drive down, it's like being somewhere else. It's amazing.
I really like it. James is sharing 369, the magic numbers. I would agree with that. I really love the patterns of numbers. Do you follow numbers a lot, Jenny, as well?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, that's a whole other conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I'm an expert in, but I do follow numbers and synchronicities and things like that. I am very interested in it.
Yeah.
And Tesla said, didn't he, that 369 was the secret to the universe. So.
Yeah, and astrologically as well. I notice with my clients that I work with that when planets are a particular distance away from each other, like when we're talking about angles, the angles to do with 3s and 6s and 9s, and that kind of resonance is very, very powerful. And so I look at those as well. I also like geometria.org.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Not surprised there.
You can have hours of fun with that.
Oh gosh, yes. And 9 is the master number. Wolfgang saying good night and thank you. Thank you very much to you and your good missus for joining us tonight. Digal, Makilla, what's happening? Looks like did something happen? It looked like something just came out of his body there. It's like he's summoned the dead. Oh, I shouldn't say this, you know. I'm going to send some healing vibes down to Mr. M. I wonder if I could do like a puppet show with him. That would be fun. Like pull his strings. Anyway, sorry. Deagle saying it's known that a full moon, more women's pregnant waters break starting labour. I think I've read that out wrong. I've worked 27 years in a maternity hospital in Belfast.
And
There's a lot of
psychiatric admissions as well, the same, and more heart attacks and strokes and things like that.
Yeah,
And
I'm
they
not
just call it
surprised by
Luna for anything, do they?
lunacy, lunatics taking over the asylum. Yeah. Don Murphy saying, I think you need to do a second, especially I have
I'm just rejoining the stream now.
Hello. What were you channeling down there? It looked like you were summoning something. Seeing you just like muttering to yourself with no sound is really freaky.
What was that? I just missed it. I only got the end of that. What is really freaky?
You going like this.
Chanting. No, I was just talking to my meditation friends.
I know.
Who aren't
all of a sudden you went like this.
Did I?
Yeah,
I gave a Mexican meditation wave.
Well, I was hoping I could go like this and like pretend to pull your strings.
Yeah. You could try it now if you want. Let's see if we can do that. That's rubbish. That's never going to win Britain. That's never going to win Britain's Got Talent. That needs more practice for sure.
No, our date night's a bit boring, isn't it? Apart from Jennie, who's come to glam it up a bit. Is Carl snoring?
I didn't drift off tonight. I was there. I was right there, and it was lovely.
Oh, hang on. We were looking at Don Murphy's comment. I think you need to do a second. Is this like a? Oh, why are we getting this horrible?
We can't hear it as badly as you can.
Oh, okay. I've given home grandmother's remedies, solution pills are not the answers. They help, but are not a cure. This all goes back to 2 weeks ago, cause and effect.
Oh.
I'm not sure.
What we talked about the other day on the rainbow effect. Yeah.
I like this gut health plus core limiting beliefs. I read something, Jennie, just a couple of nights ago that you can cure eyesight issues, and that eyesight issues are linked to poor gut health, and the toxins produced by the bacteria and parasites go up to the optic nerve and starve it of oxygen. And if you get your diet right, your eyesight changes. And the funny thing is, I've noticed over the years that I've had, say, 4 months of like really poor eyesight. And then as I get healthier, I notice my periods get better and my eyesight gets better.
Yeah, I guess that restoring your balance reduces inflammation.
Yeah.
And that inflammation can be anywhere in the body. It could be the optic nerve, or it could be the liver, or it could be anywhere. That inflammation could be anywhere. But gut health is definitely a massive area of expansion now. And there's a really good resource that I use, which is the Probiotic Advisor. And what it does is it has all the research for different conditions and different types of overgrowth. And so you can really specify which probiotics you need to give, because not all may be beneficial. Depends on what balance you have. And you only really know that if you test. But I think what's fascinating about the gut microbiome, or the microbiome, not just the gut microbiome, but in general, is that they estimate that we're only 10% human. We're actually 90% microbiome, which is fascinating, isn't it? We're like a vessel for our microbiome, really. They're controlling us, or we're controlling them. I read a very good book called The Psychobiotic Revolution, and it was all about mental health and the gut microbiome. It's fascinating.
It's funny, we were talking about this last week in fecal transplants.
Yeah, fascinating again.
And how you take them and whatnot.
And did you know that if there's firmicutes and then there's bacteroids as well? And if people that are more prone to be obese have a certain balance, and people that are more prone to be thin also have a certain balance, they're the opposite way around. And if you implant someone that's very thin into someone that's overweight, and that bacteria becomes the more dominant bacteria, then that person will lose weight. And it can also be the opposite way around as well.
Wow.
So it could be a treatment for obesity.
Yeah,
That
where
is a
can I get
wow.
some of that?
Because what they say is that your gut microbiome is driving your choices. So Candida, for example,
Yes.
loves sugar. So Candida is almost telling your brain, it's saying to your brain, eat sugar, because it loves sugar. In fact, they're very smart.
Yeah, my goodness.
They get their needs met much better than we do.
Do you
Okay.
know what? We are at
what?
midnight. We are midnight.
Oh, it's 5
and
past already.
yeah, the from microbiome to microphone, which has a grounding issue, and we can resolve the show in this. This is, you know, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So
Yes.
maybe if your
We need to
microphone needs
ground.
grounding, so do we, and that might be a note. We all need more grounding, don't we? I think. And look at this. This just in. Thank you for the lovely meditation, Carl. So somebody did come with me to the other side, as it were.
Yeah, I was
Thank you,
watching our numbers. We didn't really lose many people.
Which makes a change. I did hear you talking about our relative numbers on our YouTube channels. So I hope you enjoyed that moment. I think we should leave it there for the night because Jenny, you've been so generous with your time, and we know that we've kept you
so
way
much.
beyond your bedtime tonight.
It's a pleasure.
And you're a star, and thank you so much because you've talked about so many different things tonight, and so many interesting and fascinating things. And I hope you'll come back and talk to us again.
Jenny,
Definitely.
if somebody wants to contact you about having some integrative coaching, health coaching, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, they can go to my website, which is www.genius.life, or I can put my email on the chat if people want to email me on the chat.
Life. I've just popped in your website.
Okay. Yeah.
Great stuff.
All right.
Excellent. Jenny, thanks. Everybody else, thanks. Love, if you press button number 3, will some music start playing?
Button number 3. Oh, let's find out.
Yeah. Documentation and collation for access to my new nation. DD7 on a tight ration. Sometimes it's as slow as constipation. One day I know Sep will come through. I'll get my QR code and come join you. And even Fido won't make me blue. It's documentation and correlation for access to my brand new nation. Access to my brand new nation. Ooh, access to my brand new nation. Thanks very much, folks. We'll leave it there. Bye for now. See you next week, 10 o'clock. And only on